If you're receiving this transmission, you are the resistance, declaring war on the New World Order. TruthRadioShow.com. And welcome everybody to the Dan Bidondi Show right here on TruthRadioShow.com. I'm your host, Dan Bidondi. So we've got a quick informational video today, the Second Amendment, because of the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict and everything else. He's been found not guilty. So many people across the nation question what is the Second Amendment. And there's a lot of people going around saying, well, the Second Amendment's only for militias. So today we're going to discover what the Second Amendment actually is and what the Founding Fathers had to say about the Second Amendment. Because you got the mainstream media out there, of course, they'll never show you what the Second Amendment is. They'll just come up and say, oh, it's just for militia members, and they'll lie about the Second Amendment, and, and nobody challenges them because they never show it on screen anyway. So what we're going to do here is we're going to examine what the Second Amendment is. So everybody's questioning because the whole Kyle Rittenhouse ordeal, people are questioning, was he within his rights? And people say, well, he wasn't a militia member. So how was he able to carry a gun, and how was he able to defend himself? Well, let's get into the history, what the Second Amendment is about. So when the mainstream media brings up the Second Amendment, you will never see this on screen. They will never show you this. They'll have some idiot lawyer, somebody out there to say, well, I'm an expert in legality, and sit there and to completely botch the Second Amendment. It's ridiculous, it really is. And, of course, they'll never put that graphic up on screen. So what is the Second Amendment? So a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, people say, well, you're not a militia, Dan, you can't have a gun. You can't protect yourself. You're not allowed to do that because you're not a militia member. First of all, it says the people. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's two parts to the Second Amendment. Because you get the First Amendment, you have many parts of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of protest, all part of the First Amendment. Well, it's two parts of the Second Amendment. The one is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. And we're going to tell you what that is. Is it the National Guard? Is it the military? Is it the police? What does regulated mean? Does it mean controlled by city, state, or government? Who are they talking about? And the second part is the right of the people. You see military and anything? Not that the military don't have a right, but you see military, police, or anything? Or National Guard? No. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Plain and simple. So let's examine what this means. So this graphic here is by James Madison. This is a breakdown of what the Second Amendment is, each and every part. So you're going to see each and every clause of the Second Amendment, and we're going to break it down. What does it mean? And when James Madison ratified, this was ratified in 1791, presented in 1789. Ratified in 1791, it was part of the Bill of Rights, which was the first 10 amendments. So, a well-regulated militia. What is a well-regulated militia? Simply, a militia, when properly formed, are in fact the people themselves. Do you see National Guard or military there? No. The people themselves, whose ability to act in both personal and common defense must be well maintained. That's, well organized, well practiced. It doesn't mean controlled by city, state, or government. And being necessary to the security of a free state, to be secure in personal liberty, the state of being free, and the governance of a free people, the state securing the rights of a free people. Again, do you see National Guard, military, or police in there? No, you don't. And the right of the people, which means the whole of the people, an individual right independent of government. You read that right, independent of government. To keep and bear arms, which means to own and carry arms of whatever type necessary to effectively provide for personal defense and defense against tyranny. Now you got the common misconception that the Second Amendment was only for muskets. That's not true, because they did have rapid-fire weapons back then, which would be considered today semi-automatics or whatever. They had those weapons back then. Yeah, sure. The musket was a commonly used weapon because it was a cheaper one. Because remember, the Continental Army didn't have much money compared to the British. And what does shall not be infringed mean? And if I really need to explain this to you, which I'm going to anyway, you really need to really get a reality check. But shall not be infringed means shall not be limited, shall not be regulated, or federally excessively taxed or encroached upon in any manner. So that is what the Second Amendment means, guys. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And there's no limits to muskets, what you can carry. It doesn't say military police, it says the people. And in fact, we're going to go a step further. Let's find out what the Founding Fathers had to say about the militias. Yeah, Eldred Jerry here says, what, sir, is the use of a militia? Is it to prevent the establishment of a standing army, the bane of liberty? Whenever government means to invade the rights and liberties of the people, they always attempt to destroy the militia in order to raise an army upon their ruins. Now, the main purpose of the Second Amendment was so the people could defend themselves against their own government if they had to. That was the main intent for the Second Amendment. And Richard Henry Lee quoted, a militia when properly formed are in fact the people themselves, and include all men capable of bearing arms. To preserve the liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms. And here in the state of Rhode Island, when the state of Rhode Island first formed, we had, they call it Minuteman Law. Here in the state of Rhode Island, it was established so every male body 16 years old and older had to carry a gun on them at all times. They were not Army National Guard, they were not military, they were not police. The people. That's who the constitutional militia. Now today, yes, a state militia, yes, is the National Guard. It's the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard, whatever. But a state militia and a constitutional militia are two different things. The militia in the Second Amendment that talk about a well-regulated militia, is well-trained, the people. Richard Henry Lee said, a militia, when properly formed, are in fact the people themselves, and include all men capable of bearing arms. You guys see a lot of similar quotes because all these guys were on the same page when it came to gun rights. Samuel Adams said, the militia is composed of the free citizens. There is therefore no danger in them making use of their power to make the destruction of their own rights or suffering others to invade them. George Mason said, I ask, sir, what is the militia? Is it the whole people except for a few public officials? Alexander Hamilton said, the militia is voluntary force not associated, check this out, right? Not associated or under the control of the states except when called out. A permanent or long-standing force would be entirely different in the makeup and call. Thomas Jefferson said, for the people who are afraid and who mean to remain so, a well-organized and armed militia is their best security. James Madison said, a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people, trained in arms, is the best and most natural defense of a free country. Benjamin Franklin said, never trust a government that doesn't trust its own citizens with guns. So this is the Founding Fathers, guys, and this is what they're saying about the Second Amendment. And Thomas Jefferson said, in regards to the Second Amendment, laws that forbid the carrying of arms disarm only those who neither incline nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailant, that they serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides. For an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man. Samuel Adams said, the said Constitution shall never be construed to authorize Congress to prevent the people of the United States who are peacefully citizens from keeping their own arms. So as you can see, the Congress can't even make any laws against the Second Amendment. If Congress can't, the President can't, and certainly not your governor. It's a constitutional God-given inalienable right, the first 10 amendments. James Madison said, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people, not the military, not the National Guard, not the police, composed of the body of the people, trained to arms is the best and most natural defense of a free country. And George Washington said, firearms stand next to importance to the Constitution itself. Because you need firearms to preserve our rights and our Constitution. That's what keeps us a free country, is the people being able to bear arms. And Thomas Jefferson said, what country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. James Madison again says, Americans have the right and advantage of being armed, unlike the citizens of other countries whose governments who are afraid to trust the people with arms. George Washington again, a free people ought not only to be armed and disciplined, but they should have sufficient arms and ammunition to maintain a status of independence from anyone who might attempt to abuse them, which would include, look at this, which would include their own government. This is the intent of the Second Amendment. Thomas Jefferson again says, laws that forbid the carrying of arms only disarm those who are neither inclined nor determined, in which I doubled this one. I already read that one. I'm sorry, guys. So, yeah, you get the point, okay? And there's just a few quotes of many, many. And even in recent years, John F. Kennedy, back in the 60s, he said this, Democratic president, the last real Democratic president, if you ask me, but he says, by calling attention to the well-regulated militia, and he wasn't talking about the National Guard or the military or the police, by calling attention to a well-regulated militia, the security of this nation, of the right of each citizen to keep and bear arms, our founding fathers recognized the essential civilian nature of our economy. Civilian. You see military there? Police or anything? No, civilian nature of our economy. Although it is extremely unlikely that the fears of government tyranny, which would give rise to the Second Amendment, will ever be major danger to our nation, the amendment still remains an important declaration of our basic civil-military relationships, in which every citizen must be ready to participate in the defense of this country. For that reason, I believe the Second Amendment will always be important. That was President John F. Kennedy, April of 1960. And he also quoted, too, today we need a nation of Minutemen, citizens who are not only prepared to take up arms, but citizens who regard the preservation of freedom as a basic purpose of their daily life and who are willing to consciously work and sacrifice for that freedom. So this is the Founding Fathers, and recently, these years, is John F. Kennedy. So now, if somebody asks you again what the Second Amendment is, guys, you need to tell them right out. The Second Amendment is not limited to duck hunting. It's not limited to muskets. It's not for the militias only. The Second Amendment was for every God-given American, God-loving American, to carry a firearm. Every citizen in this country has the right to carry a firearm. That's our constitutional right. It's written right in the Second Amendment. So, get back to Kyle Rittenhouse, because a lot of people now question what is the Second Amendment. And they have the news who give their false interpretation of the Second Amendment. And in fact, they never show that graphic up on screen. They'll say it's just for the militias, the militias and National Guard and all that. No. The militia in this context is you, me, we the people. That's who the militia are. Every able body to be able to have a gun. To defend its nation. And that was the sole importance of the Second Amendment, is to defend our nation, not only against foreign and domestic, but against our own government, if need be. That's one of the most important amendments of our Constitution. And without the second, guys, you won't have the rest, plain and simple. And people say, well, Dan, the amendments are made to be touched, and, edited, whatever the case, voted on, whatever. No, that's not what these amendments are. The first 10 amendments we'll call the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is not Amendments 11 and up. No, it's 1 through 10. That's the Bill of Rights. That was, again, ratified in 1791. The author was James Madison. These were declared as God-given, inalienable rights independent of government. That means the government can't touch it. And the First Amendment says Congress can't make any laws against these rights. If Congress can't do that, the president can't, and most certainly your governor can't. Or anybody else in government. These are independent of government. These are God-given, inalienable rights that not even government themselves, if all three branches of government got together, the executive, judiciary, and legislative, if they all got together and say we're going to abolish the Second Amendment, they can't. This is why, since 1791, and here's the thing, they say, well, yeah, you got it all wrong, Dan, and all that. So if I got it wrong, right, so for over 200 years, that we all got it wrong for over 200 years. For over 200 years, everybody had a right in this country to defend themselves. Even to this day, you'll never hear this news on the mainstream media. You'll never hear that every day in this country, a gun owner, a regular citizen like you and me, stops a crime, they thwart a crime, save a life, stop mass shootings a lot. That you don't even hear this in the media at all. Save cops' lives, prevent homicides, all kinds of stuff that go on every day in this country. People defend themselves sometimes with their guns and kill the assailant. The perpetrator, the one who's attempted to do harm, physical harm to their friends, families, and neighbors or themselves. And they're able to defend themselves and they don't end up in jail. Because that's a God-given right. And the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, he defended himself against 3 thugs attacking him with dangerous weapons, whacking him in the head with a skateboard that would kill anybody. And the third guy pointed a loaded gun at him, and these were convicted felons. He defended himself and got away. I mean, that was well within his rights. So if you want to question what the Second Amendment is, that's what it is, guys. That's why Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty, because he was well within his Second Amendment rights, which is a God-given, inalienable right. That right is preserved for you, me, and everybody else here watching. So, guys, don't take any of the mainstream media's word for it, guys, because, again, they never show that graphic on the screen. They won't tell you the truth because they want you to think the government has power to touch the Second Amendment, which they don't. That's why since 1791, even before that, this country had the ability to do this. The people in this country had the ability to do this. And what's the number one thing, if you ask yourself, the number one thing tyrants all throughout history did before they took over a country, before they became tyrannical, the number one thing they did was attack the people's right to bear arms. They did this in Germany. They did this in Poland. They did this in Cuba. They did this in Russia. Every communist country across the board, the number one thing they did was take the rights of the peoples to bear arms and weapons. And that's when the tyrants came in and took over the countries. So you see the Common Clause, hundreds of millions of people in the 1900s died because they trusted their own government to say, oh, you know what, we'll give up our gun rights, you protect us. And look how that turned out. There would have never been a Holocaust for the Jews. There would have never been any mass extermination of populations if those people never gave up their rights to bear arms. So, if you want this country to become another Holocaust, you want to be a victim of that. You want to be a victim of tyranny, and people say, oh, it'll never happen here. They said the same thing in Poland. They said the same thing in Germany. They said the same thing all over the world. And every country that's given up their gun rights have lost either many lives or civil liberties. And because you got these gun control advocates, oh, we got to model ourselves after the UK and all these other countries that gave up their gun rights. Oh, we do? Because here, there in the UK, you speak out against the government, you could be arrested. And most people are being arrested for speaking out. Look at all over the world that's going on. People fighting for their rights all over the world. Yeah, in all these countries that, especially recent years, Australia and all that, New Zealand, giving up their gun rights, they have lost major civil liberties. Governments are running rampant, and nobody can stop them. And that's the importance of the Second Amendment, because the Founding Fathers seen that was going on in Europe at the time. Okay, how they were suppressing the rights of the people by attacking the firearms. Did you know the first war here in America was called the King Philip War? This is long before the Revolution. And the King Philip War was the British, the Crown, wanted to confiscate the guns from the Native Americans. And my ancestor on my mother's side, he was known as King Philip. He was Grand Sachem, that means Grand Chief of the Wampanoag Indian tribe that stood against the British. He joined forces with the Pequots, the Mohegans, and a couple other tribes. They all joined forces. And the Narragansetts, Pequots, Mohegans, and Wampanoags all joined forces together to overthrow the British because, they gave the British, the settlers here, land. Then the Crown wanted their guns. They said, we don't want the natives to have guns. So they attempted to confiscate the guns, and the tribes at the time got together and decided to say, you know what, we need to overthrow these people. Get them out of our country. And of course, there was the Mohegan tribe, I believe it was, that sold our own people out and sided with the British, and the British just kept sending people here, and the British won eventually, but it was all over gun stuff, and the Revolution too. They attempted to confiscate the civilians' guns in Lexington, Concord, Massachusetts, April 19th, 1775. And we all know how that turned out. The first shot heard around the world. It was always over guns. The tyrants always wanted the guns. So this is real American history, guys. This is real world history that's going on. You can look this up all for yourselves, guys. And I encourage you, read the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Read it for yourselves. Read the Federalist Papers. Read what the Founding Fathers said about the Second Amendment. And those quotes I quoted was just a few of countless quotes. So again, that's what the Second Amendment's about, guys. So this is Dan Bidondi. I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you like this broadcast, we got a PayPal, Venmo, and CashApp to help fund our operation here. We do a news show. It's the Nightly News with Dan Bidondi, and also a spiritual warfare show every Friday nights. And we do all special videos like this as well. So this is a special video out here just to bring awareness on what the Second Amendment's about. And if you like the broadcast, guys, please help support us. The link is in the description. And I want to thank our sponsors, CashApp.com, Benchman Knives and Survival Gear, and Joshua Watts Leather Company, where your custom leather project becomes a reality. It's joshuawattsleather.com. And Sugar and Spice Soaps. It's sugarandspicesoap.com. Organic soap, handmade soap by this awesome family. And so all the links, guys, are in the description. And please support our sponsors. And I want to thank ShakeandWakeRadio.com for carrying our show on their network. And also BeforeIt'sNews.com, as I'm a contributor writer for them. So I want to thank you all for tuning in today. And guys, I can't stress enough how important the Second Amendment is. And here's the thing. The great thing about this country, if you don't like guns, nobody's forcing you to have one. You don't have to have one. That's your right not to like them. That's your right not to have them. But you can't enforce your will on other people. This country is built on God, guns, and liberty. That's what it was built on. God-fearing men who love their liberty and use guns to protect their liberty. Plain and simple. So this is Dan Bidondi, TruthRadioShow.com. Remember, you are the resistance. Declaring war on the New World Order, TruthRadioShow.com. Defending liberty in the spirit of 1776. It's Dan Bidondi on TruthRadioShow.com.